Hello and welcome to Hyper Production with me, Rory. In this episode I want to talk about top 5 tips for Ableton Live 9, so stay tuned. Up at number 1 is freezing your tracks. This one's more related to your processing power on your computer. So if you start having a project that's full up of a lot of tracks and you notice that playback is starting to be a little bit jerky and a bit slow, or maybe not even playing at all, this particular feature will save you from that. Basically what it does is when you click freeze track, which I'll show you in a second, it basically renders everything to a single audio file and freezes everything so that it already knows what's happening within that track, enabling you to then play it back without any problems at all. So let's go and take a look. Okay, so here we are within Ableton. So you might have something set up similar to what I've got here, so a project essentially. Now, what you'll probably notice is if you've got a lot of tracks, the playback tends to be a bit stuttered, or it might not even play back at all and give you an error reading saying there's no more CPU power available, or something similar to that. Now, the good way, or the best way to measure this is at the top right here, you'll see like a percentage. Now what this is a metering of your CPU processing power, so your computing power if you like. Basically the higher this is, or higher the percentage is, the worse performance that you're going to get from Ableton. So you want to try and keep that as low as you can. So that's when freezing tracks comes into play. So now we're going to play this back and we'll just hear it normal. So this is it unfrozen if you like, so this is just normal. Okay, so you can see the CPU spike at the top here sort of going up. So if you right click on the track, go down to freeze track, it will then analyze and basically pre-render all the effects and anything that you've got on there, and then it will just sort of read it as an audio. So it's already preempted what the processing is going to be, but with that means that you can't add any extra effects. So you can see at the bottom here, it's all grayed out. So if we try to add something on there, it won't let us do it. So I'm trying to drag a compressor on there and it's just giving me a no symbol. Okay, and then if you want to add something to it and then refreeze it, then you just have to unfreeze it. So unfreeze track, and then it'll go back to normal. So then if I freeze that track again, it's going to sound exactly the same. So that's how you freeze tracks in Ableton Live. Up at number 2 is hot swapping audio. So say you've built a drum loop, but then you might want to change the sound of the snare or the hi-hats or the kick drum, but then you don't want to go through the whole track and replace every single audio file, because admittedly that will be extremely tedious. But there is a way within Ableton Live 9 that you can replace every one of those hits on your drums, so whether it's snare drums or kick drums, in one foul swoop. Typically people do this as MIDI, but personally I prefer to work with audio, and I'm going to show you how you can quickly in real time audition new sounds for your loops. So let's go and check it out. Okay, so let's get straight into it. So you're going to have Ableton opened, obviously, on your project, and you're probably going to have a couple of one-shots opened up like we have here, so I'll just play that through. Okay, so the quick and easy way to do this, you're going to go up to View, and you go to File Manager, and then you're going to be welcomed with this little panel that's open to the right here. And you're going to click on Manage Sets, View Files, and then here is the little button that is the hot swap function. So I'm going to click on that, and then it's going to say in orange up here, hot swap mode, and then you simply just go down and then audition the particular one shots that you want to put in. So we'll click through. So let's go for this one, and then you just hit enter, and then you see that they've changed straight away, as easy as that. So we'll play that through. And it's as simple as that, hot swapping audio in Ableton Live. Up at number 3 is pseudo-sidechaining. Now this is the ability to sidechain a signal, so synths or basses or anything like that, without using a kick drum or a little note or a MIDI trigger to then initiate the pumping effect from the sidechain. So effectively you're doing a sidechaining effect all on one channel using a separate plugin. So let's get to it. Okay, so the particular type of sidechain we're going to be using is not using an initial trigger. So traditionally, a lot of people might just use a kick drum or maybe a separate silented or muted track to use as a trigger to then initiate that pumping sidechain effect. So for example, I'll show you how people might typically do it, and then we'll move on to the pseudo-sidechaining technique, which is the whole point of this video. So let's drag the glue compressor onto there. and then you click on the down arrow there and then click on sidechain, and then obviously we want the sidechain to be happening from our kick, and then pull the attack down to about 3 and then put the release all the way down to 1, and then you would typically pull down the threshold until you start getting that pumping effect. So I'll play it through, I'll pull down the threshold and you'll hear exactly what I mean. Okay, so that is all very well and good, but as soon as that kick drum stops playing in certain parts of the track, then the pumping effect will stop as well. So how do we get about that? Pseudo-Sidechaining. So what we're going to use for this is the auto pan. Now what this traditionally does is actually pans the signal left and right, so from your left speaker over to your right speaker, and that is determined by this little phase button down here. So what we're actually going to do is essentially switch off that panning from left and right, so now it's just going to be panning both speakers, so it's just going to be going up and down in volume as opposed to turning up the volume separately in left and right channels. And then obviously we want the amount all the way up, and then more importantly we want it to be on a sawtooth, but then we want to invert that because we want it to be coming up in volume on the off beat. So if you see it here, that's on the on beat that it's coming down in volume, but then if we click this normal to invert, it will then be going the other way. So let's hear that. So it's giving you that pumping effect. And then when you want it to match the BPM and the rhythm of your project, you simply click from Hertz, so the frequency response. You click down to this little note here, and then it will lock into the grid mode. So you now see that it's changed from frequency to rate, and then we simply change that to 1/4, and then we have a listen. And then if we take our kick drum out, so it doesn't necessarily matter if our kick drum or trigger is there, we will always have that pumping sidechain effect. So that is pseudo-sidechaining in Ableton Live. Up at number 4 is quick warping. Now, if you've imported an audio sample into your project and you might not necessarily know the BPM of it, trying to get that to fit in with your current BPM of your project can be a little bit tricky and a little bit time consuming. So in this next tip, I'm going to be showing you how to do that quickly and easily. So let's go and check it out. Okay, so here we are within our project. So obviously we're going to be wanting to drag in some samples. Now typically any sample packs that you purchase online will have the BPM basically put into the title. So you can see this one that I've got highlighted here. It's at 122 BPM, even though our project is at 130. So we're obviously going to have to do a bit of warping to get that to fit in and go in time with our project. So we're going to drag that in. Just going to put that back to 1. Now I can already see that this sample kind of needs to fit within 8 bars. So you can see it's just hanging over 9 there. So what we're going to do, we can double click on that, and then obviously it's going to open up at the bottom here. Now what we're going to do quick warping is use the pitch function. Typically people would click warp and then they would move these individual transient markers which Ableton has already pre-assigned. So you can see as I'm dragging along the top here, it's already mapping to the separate transients. Now you can go in individually and then pull them across to match up with the grid, but that's extremely tedious and it takes quite a while. So what we're going to do instead is switch off warp, and then we're going to turn up this scent tuning button here, and we're going to keep going up until our drum loop is in time with our track. So we've got metronome on, we're going to play it through, and then we're going to tune it up until it basically speeds through. So when you turn the pitch up or something, typically it replicates what's happening on a record player. So faster you go, the higher up in pitch it goes, and vice versa going down as well. So that's kind of like the theory that we're working with here. So here we go. Like I suspected, that it's obviously going to be falling within that 8-bar loop, so just hitting or stopping on the 9 to then loop back round. So if I zoom in on this project, on this window here, I can see that I'm already a little bit over, so I probably just need to do a little bit more tuning. So then just go up on your scent until you hit going inside of there. So you are already done, and then just basically come out of that. And then we are going to be in time, but you want to make sure that it's rock solid. So then what we're going to do now is switch warp back on, and then Ableton is going to lock all those transients to the closest grid or the closest beat, and then we can switch off all of our pitching that we've got going on there as well. So then I can just double click on that and then put 0, and then we are in time. And that is how you do quick warping in Ableton Live 9. And at number 5 is recording MIDI effects. Now what this is basically recording the output of a MIDI effect. If you don't know what a MIDI effect is, then I highly recommend just doing a quick Google search just to double check what it is. It is very easy to understand. So in this technique, I'm going to be showing you how to actually capture what's going on out of that effect. So let's go and check it out. Okay, so here we are in Ableton yet again, and then I've got a little MIDI region set up here on just an FM piano, pretty basic patch. I'm just going to play it through. Okay, cool. So it's very basic. So we might want to add perhaps a chord MIDI effects to it. So then out of those single notes, it's then going to generate a chord for us. So just take House to Go preset there and then have a listen. So very, very simple. Then what we're going to do is open up another MIDI channel. And then what we're going to do now is actually get the output from our FM piano and then create it to be an input for our new channel. Okay, so we're going to go from there to input channel, make sure record enable is on, and then we're simply just going to record through like this. And there we have all our chords that is generated by the MIDI effect plugin. So you can use this with the arpeggiator or any other MIDI effect plugin, and that is how you record MIDI effects simply and easily within Ableton Live 9. Okay, so that about wraps it up for our top 5 Ableton Live 9 tips. So just to recap, up at number 1, we spoke about freezing tracks. At number 2, we spoke about hot swapping audio. At number 3, we talked about pseudo-sidechaining. And at number 4, we talked about quick warping. And last, but by no means least, at number 5, we talked about recording MIDI effects. So if you've got any questions about the tips that we've shown you here today, then pop them in the comments section below. And also, if you've learned anything from this video, please don't forget to give us a big thumbs up because it helps us out massively. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So I've been Rory from Hyper Production. Thank you for watching. Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you want to watch more, then click on the links next to me and don't forget to subscribe. If you want to find out more information about us, then head over to www.hyperproduction.com and join our mailing list to get all the latest. So I'll see you on another video.